Welcome to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Keynon Lake is the author of the book My Daddy Taught Me That, published by Welcome, a social worker and activist. You can like this show's fan page at www.facebook.com/The Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Feel free to post any comments, questions, or requests for his book on the fan page. Now let's go into the studio with your host, Mr. Keynon Lake, and co-host, Marcus Select.
Yes. Welcome to the Keynon Lake Show. Keynon, this is a great day, man, to start a brand new show.
Good. You're right. You're absolutely right. Hello, America.
Yes.
You are listening to the first Keynon Lake Show. This is the first Keynon Lake Show, and we are here, excited to be here. To all of the listeners, to all the followers, welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio.
Yes, what's up?
Mr. Select, a.k.a. the Coach, how are you doing this today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing really good, man. So good to have your new show up and running, and we are excited, man. So talk to the people a little bit about yourself, man, and what you got on for today.
Well, again, introduced in the beginning of the intro, I am the host, Keynon Lake, from Asheville, North Carolina. My background is social work. I deal with neglected and abused children. I'm the author of My Daddy Taught Me That, which is a book that I wrote. The book is really about my dad, a little bit about what he's done in my life and what he's done for the community in Asheville, North Carolina. Also, the book talks about one of the main focuses that's kind of dear to my heart, which is absent fathers and single parents, primarily fathers. And it talks about statistics, gives a lot of factual information, that type of deal, trying to impact, educate, and inform not only our youth but our men, trying to light a fire under our men so we can be better fathers and better providers for our family. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I have a program that I started, which is also called My Daddy Taught Me That, and it's a men's development program. I work with young men ages 12 through 19. The goal with that is to try to catch these young men at an earlier age to kind of instill those skills, that transition stage from when we can transition from that adolescent stage to adulthood. So that's me for the most part. That's what I do. Today's show, what we want to talk about today, though, is something that I've been dealing with for the last several weeks here, and it's something that I really want to get across here early today. And that's this education system in America dealing with our youth and young adults. And what I want to start off talking about is basically this article that I read. I read this article about a month ago, and it talks about 80% of all graduates in the state of New York are unable to read, write, and do basic math. Now, these are high school graduates. And this article talks about when these young students go on to community college, the community colleges in the state of New York have to retrain and re-educate these young students on the basic reading, the basic math, and the basic writing. And this is something that I'm seeing across not only in New York, but I'm seeing it across the country. And it's very prevalent here in North Carolina, particularly here in Asheville. I work with young adults and youth every day, and I have experienced, a ton of youth here in Asheville who are in 10th and 11th grade and who are reading on second grade reading levels and even below. So the thing, Coach, is what's happened to our education system, and how are these kids allowed to graduate and be pushed out in this world without the basic skills?
Wow, man, I don't know. It's just, I think you said it best when we interviewed some time back, is that there's a breakdown in the home. There's a breakdown in the home first, and then, of course, there's an antiquated educational system that our kids are put into or fitted into. And so I think that you are right on the cutting edge by catching them in this huge transition that they're in, Keynon. As we came down there to Asheville, North Carolina, and met with just a few of the boys, and met with you, and met with some of the people that live in the neighborhood, and toured the area, I think that you're right on the cutting edge by catching them in this serious transition where they need affirmation, confirmation, all of those types of things. So, but, to answer your question, I think it's a breakdown in the home. Home has not been home for many people, for many kids. And then there's a breakdown in upgrading the educational system that our children are in, because we have multiple intelligences and we're only tapping into maybe one or two of them. You know what I mean?
I totally understand. And you're absolutely right. A lot of times, even dealing with my program, even dealing with the young kids that I deal with, I not only talk to them, I talk to the parents. And what I tell the parents is this: I have your child for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2 to 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. That's at the most 6 hours a week. Okay, I have them for 6 hours a week. Depending on what kind of functions and activities I may do, I may have them a little longer. But let's just say I have a young man for 10 hours a week. Mm-hmm. 10 hours for 7 days is not a lot of time. So what I tell these parents is this: it doesn't matter what I talk to your child about. It doesn't matter what I'm trying to instill in your child, what I'm trying to teach your child, what I'm trying to show your child. The reality is when they come back home. The reality is, okay, you know what? Yeah, what all my kids call me Mr. Keynon. So what Mr. Keynon said was this, what Mr. Keynon said was that. But my reality is when I come back home, when I come through this door, it's what my mom or my dad or my grandmother or whatever care provider, is there, what I see and what I learn from them. Because like the saying goes, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what we see as children, and we see growing up in the home is ultimately what we're going to do and what we're going to be.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And I think that what we have missed in our educational training is that the education doesn't stop with the children at school, but it continues in your adulthood as you learn to be a parent, as you learn to be a responsible community citizen, as you learn to be neighbors. And we have had a very serious breakdown in community. So, we'll take a small break and pick up wherever you want, but I think that you're hinting on what the ongoing issue is, and that is we can do all the work in our individual nonprofit areas that we want to, but the home base still has to recognize and aspire to change. And I think that's what you're saying is that, listen, parents, if you're listening, fathers, mothers, if you're listening, don't be afraid to ask questions, read books, go to various support groups so that you can get all the support that you need as you raise a very confident, aspiring citizen in your home in the form of a daughter or a son. What you think?
I think you're absolutely right. And when we come back, we'll address this a little bit more.
All right. We'll take a small break. We'll be right back.
Listening to SIBN Radio. We'll be right back in a moment. Now is the time to have your business online with the Select USA TV iBroadcasting Network. That's right, SIBN or Select USA TV will produce your video on the spot. Picture business videos, on location streaming videos, or on location production videos. Dial 678-830-3118 or call the office at 404-910-5019 Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now is the time to have your business online with SIBN. The Select USA TV iBroadcasting Network now offers picture videos, on-location streaming videos, and on-location production videos for your event cause, brand, or mission. Call today, 678-830-3118 or 404-910-5019. Attention all artists of all genres. Now you can be featured on Gas Global Artist Showcase on the CATL show, airing now on SIBN Radio. That's right, all artists now, all genres, wholesome and positive, please, can be featured on Gas Global Artist Showcase. Global Artist Showcase on the CATL show, now airing on SIBN Radio. For more information, dial 404-910-5019. That's 404-910-5019. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. Or email us at globalcoverage@selectusatv.info.
Are you a spoken word artist?
Now is your time to be featured online. Tier 1 Promotions on the CATL show is looking for spoken word artists to be featured
On regular rotation.
If you are a spoken word artist, now is your time to be promoted on Tier 1 Promotions with the CATL show. For more information, dial 404-910-5019. That's 404-910-5019. Or email us your bio and your links to work online. Global coverage at selectusatv.info. Global coverage at selectusatv.info. Calling all spoken word artists nationwide. Nationwide call for all spoken word artists. Nationwide call for all spoken word artists. This has been your CATL Gas Global Artist Showcase promotion.
All submissions must be wholesome and positive.
Yes, Mr. Keynon Lake, we are so excited about your show right here on SIBN Radio, man. We were having a great conversation. Continue on as you were sharing with the listeners about this educational piece.
Well, yeah, again, like you talked about, Coach, it is up to the parents. Ultimately, whatever we do with our children, with our youth, is going to be up to us as parents and caretakers. However, getting back into this education thing, here in Asheville, North Carolina, it's also in my book. My daddy taught me that we have a graph and a chart. Actually, it's a PowerPoint which was done by Dr. Dwight Mullen and his wife, Dolly Mullen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this PowerPoint, what's addressed is the educational outcomes of all of the African American students here in Asheville, North Carolina, in 2010, 2011. Now, this PowerPoint only focuses on the African American students, but here in Asheville, African American students are under 50% in every category, under 50%. Okay. Now, of course, we know in America and throughout the entire country, the education system is really lacking for all races, but under 50% here in Asheville, North Carolina, for the African American students in every reading, writing, science, all these math, all of these subjects. So what that tells me is this: we're failing our youth,
right?
And what we're doing is we're failing them because what's happening is this: we're allowing these youth, and it's mind-boggling to me because it kind of hit home to me. It kind of hit home to me about 2 weeks ago, Coach. About 2 weeks ago, I was working with a young man, and before meeting this young man, before talking to this young man, I was informed that this young man could only read on the second grade reading level. So I said to myself, I said, you know what, you hear someone telling me that, but you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I hear it. But honestly, when I first started working with this young man, and he's a very bright, very smart kid, so I started trying to help him out with his reading. And when we started reading, we got to a point where he actually started reading and really could not read. And that's when it hit home, like wow, like I heard this woman say this, I heard her lips move, and I heard the words coming out of her mouth, but this kid really cannot read. And that's when I started thinking, like, how in the world did he get to the 10th grade? How is this kid in the 10th grade and he can only read on the second grade reading level? How is that possible? How can he go through this much time in his educational career without someone picking up on this, without some teacher, professional, without someone picking up on this, saying, you know what, we got to get this kid some help.
Right.
So it goes back to what you just said, Coach. It goes back to exactly what you just said. We cannot put everything in the hands of our teachers. We have to, as parents, like you said, we have to be able to kind of educate ourselves. We got to be able to say, you know what, and not only educate ourselves, but make sure our children are taking advantage of every option that they have out there. Tutoring, after-school programs. We have to do that in order for our kids to be successful.
Well, Keynon, I was sitting here, and as I was thinking about community, I was thinking about community assets. And if each parent, no matter what has happened in our past, would begin to think about our children as great assets and assets to our legacy and assets to the family bloodline, I think if we look at it in that light, we might take a different approach to parenting, because whatever we invest in that child is what we're going to get a return on. And usually it's, if you plant one seed, you get multiple fruit back. So if we start looking at our children as great assets of the family bloodline, as great assets to the family name, we've been through a lot. We've had a lot of issues. But now that I have a child, that child is an asset. That child is an investment. Yes, he's human. Yes, she's human. But at the same time, I have to put in so many hours, so many resources, so much energy, not fussing and hollering and screaming or whatever the case may be, but, making sure that he doesn't, as you said, fall through the cracks. Because, Keynon, I'm sure that later on as we go on with the show through the weeks, we're going to talk about the cracks in the educational system. The system that the child is involved in the most hours of the day has so many cracks in it that if the parent is not on top of their game, that child will fall through the cracks. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And this like you said, we'll definitely get into more discussions about this. But one of the things I even talk about with my young men in my program is this as well. The government spends, and I've actually read two different studies on this. One study said the government spends $40,000 a year. I had another one that said the government spends $80,000 a year on the prison system. Okay, to house an inmate in the jail and prison system, one said $40,000, another one said $80,000. Well, the one thing that they both were consistent on was to pay for the education of a student in America is $8,000.
Right.
So these are statistics that I give my young men. Like, look, why do you think they pay? Why do you think it costs, that much more for inmates? Between $40,000, between $80,000 to house inmates, and then also, they're giving only $8,000 for education. So that's also, you're absolutely right. The system is really flawed, and we have some things we definitely got to work out. But it's also making these kids aware. And putting the responsibility on them as well. Like, look, okay, you're in the 9th, 10th grade, 11th grade, you have to understand, like, there's a reason why you are where you are. Now, you might not be all to blame. It's not all your fault. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when you graduate, when you walk through these doors, this is your life.
Right.
This is going to fall in your lap. This is going to be something that you have to deal with. The teachers who educate you, or the lack thereof, or whatever you want to call it, they already have a job. They're already getting paid. They can read. They can write.
Right.
So ultimately, what are you going to do, and how are you going to help fix this?
Wow. And you know what, Keynon, what you're doing is you're saying, listen, there's equal responsibility as well as equal blame here. And if you want to be able to migrate toward you want to mobilize yourself financially, you want to mobilize yourself socially, you have to take the reins where you can. And I think that's an empowering message, along with being able to just spend time with them. Because part of the problem with our children today is that we as parents don't spend enough time with them, because we ourselves are trying to keep up with our own bills and our own responsibilities. And, to change, Keynon, I'm finding out you have to learn how to get out of your comfort zone. And it's the same way we're spending time with kids. You have to get out of your comfort zone. They're kind of goofy. They may be a geek. They may be, smarter than you in some areas or something. They may have interests that you didn't have. So, I really, again, back to the men's program, and I know that you're going to plug that, but I really salute what you're trying to do in the community, because, as you just said, you eloquently stated, you're trying to empower the kids to listen. We know you got problems, and we're working on that. But meanwhile, this is a bull that you got to ride. And the way you ride it, one hand in the air and one hand on the rope. You know what I'm saying? So, man, it's a lot, and it can be overwhelming sometimes, don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you're faced with a lot of different things. You're faced with these young, and in today's society, Coach, and you can relate to this. Things are constantly changing. Things are, and even I like to pride myself on not being old. I'm 36, but it's like I'm not that far removed where, I can't relate and I can't, understand what these kids are dealing with and going through.
Right.
But even with how fast technology, you look at the cell phone system where we have, every 2 to 3 months there's a brand new cell phone coming out, and the way technology is moving, and it's almost virtually impossible to keep up. Right. Well, you have this age and this time that we're in, and these kids have so many more avenues to fall victim to, or to get in trouble here, or to get sidetracked there. You have so much more to distract you.
Right.
And with that being said, you have to understand too, like you mentioned too just a minute ago, Coach. As parents, we still have we're parents, we're caretakers, we're providers, but we also have our lives too. And then with the hustle and bustle of the world, dealing with your job, dealing with your society, you can definitely lose that focus and get sidetracked as well. So there are so many things that are causing or can cause distractions. And you're right, it's tough. But what we also have to do is we have to understand and say, look, and take a step back and say, look, if I'm not parenting, raising, or helping my child or these children, what's going to be the ultimate outcome? What's going to happen? Because pretty soon you and I are going to be too old to do anything but sit around and watch TV or read a book and do something, just sit down somewhere and do something. And they're going to be the future. Right. They're going to be our future. So we have to make sure that they're able to do things, to be equipped to handle themselves in this world the right way. Because if you look at on a global scale, we're falling way behind. If you look at how we're stacked up to the rest of the world, we're falling behind. And it's often, and it makes you wonder, like, why is it that no one's taking this as serious or putting as much into this? Because it's definitely a problem. Definitely a problem.
Well, we're going to take a small break, Keynon. We'll be right back. Keynon Lake will have some final words on the matter when we return. Stand by.
Trust that you are enjoying the show. Stay right there. We'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to SIBN Radio. Attention all artists of all genres. Now you can be featured on Gas Global Artist Showcase on the CATL show, airing now on SIBN Radio. That's right, all artists now, all genres, wholesome and positive, please, can be featured on Gas Global Artist Showcase. Global Artist Showcase on the CATL show, now airing on SIBN Radio. For more information, dial 404-910-5019. That's 404-910-5019. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. Or email us at selectusatv.info.
Yes, Keynon. Very great conversation, man. So what's going to be your takeaway for today, and how can we involve the listeners? And by the way, man, congratulations on the book. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, man. First of all, Coach, again, thank you. But yeah, the book, my daddy taught me that. To give a brief description of the book, because I know we don't have time, is getting short here. Again, the book focuses on my father. My father, his name is Benny Lake. It talks about what he's done here in the Asheville area. To give a little background about him really fast, my dad played with the original Harlem Globetrotters back in 1968-72. they're actually here today in Nashville, so that's going to be good.
Oh man,
but,
you should have. Oh my goodness. Anyway.
But not only did he play with the Globetrotters, he was actually a social worker for 30 years for the Juvenile Evaluation Center here in Nashville. So my dad did a lot. He did a lot for the Asheville community. He was really, really impactful and influential in this community, working with youth and young adults as well. Being a social worker for 10 years, I wanted to focus on something that has been bothering me. And what that is, going in and out of homes, dealing with neglected and abused kids. All I saw and all I continue to see is single mothers. And it was like, growing up with the father that I had, it's like, where are we at? As men, where are we at? We weren't in the homes, and it was just becoming a problem. I was getting hundreds of calls every year, from men, I need you to do this with my child. It's like, well, okay, I'm a social worker. I'm going to have to help your child, but where are you as a father? Where are you at in this child's life? So it was just really mind-boggling to me, and it just made me want to do research on the matter, because, like I said, coming from the home that I had two loving parents, my dad Benny Lake and my mother Robin Lake. I was really blessed, but I wanted to make sure that the men out there were able to understand what's happening to our youth and kids, and ultimately our families. So that's a little little exploit about the book. As far as the other question that you asked, Coach, and I'll let you go ahead and interject.
No, I was going to say that book is a good read, and so don't forget to tell them where they can get it, because a lot of the single parents are looking for answers. They're looking for help, and you have made yourself available with this book. So tell everybody, because I don't want the time to get by and we forget, tell everybody where they can get this book, because we're going to be covering parts of it and having a lot of fun with it as we go forward.
Exactly. Well, the book is actually available at Barnes & Nobles. You can call, and they will actually have to order it because it's not in stock right there. So if you go to Barnes & Nobles, they can definitely order the book. This is any Barnes & Nobles across the country. You can order the book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. And also, if you contact me via my website, which is mydaddytaughtmethat.com, or contact me on Facebook, the Keynon Lake Show, or I also have another Facebook page called My Daddy Taught Me That. I will actually be able to talk with you about getting you a copy and setting up that whole process. And we want them to order it from you. We want you, if you're listening to the Keynon Lake Show for the first time, or you're a regular listener as we move forward, we want you to order the book from Keynon Lake if you can, because it's just the same amount of processing time. But I met with I met with the publisher, and I don't want to go into that, but I met with his publisher, Ralph Roberts. And if you don't know the name, Google the name Ralph Roberts. But I promise you that your timing would not be any different if you order from Amazon or otherwise. But if you can't, order directly from Keynon Lake. This is the author on the show, the Keynon Lake Show. The author that you're listening to, Mr. Keynon Lake, is ready to send you your signed copy. Keynon, are you ready to send him a signed copy? Oh, surely. Contact me, and you will definitely get a signed copy.
All right. Well, Keynon, 30 seconds, final word?
Final word. I just want to talk to my parents real quick about the whole topic, the education topic. Make sure that you're spending time reading with your children. Make sure that if you can't help them with their homework, that you find avenues, after-school programs, tutoring programs that you can. That you can find to help your children with, because this is definitely needed. We need to make sure that our children are receiving the proper education, and we also need to make sure that they have the tools set up so they can receive the proper education. If there's anyone who needs the help, please feel free to contact me. Again, the website, Twitter, the Keynon Lake Show, the KL Show at Twitter, the Keynon Lake Show Facebook. Contact me through the website. My Daddy Taught Me That. I'll be more than happy to walk through this process with you as well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the sounds of the author, activist, social worker from Asheville, North Carolina, Mr. Keynon Lake. Keynon Lake, man, it was a lot of fun, man. Let's do this again.
We sure will. I can't wait for the next one.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
The sounds of your lifestyle improvement station, changing the way we live. SIBN FM
What's good? It's your boy Joe coming from Snellville, Georgia. You're listening to the Lifestyle Improvement Station, SIBN Radio.
Thank you for joining us today for the Keynon Lake Show. We know you will be empowered as you consider the content shared by Mr. Keynon Lake, co-host Marcus Select, and our guests. For more information about Mr. Keynon Lake, please visit www.mydaddytaughtmethat, and feel free to email us at lake@mydaddytaughtmethat.com. Books can be ordered from Mr. Lake by calling 828-582-2261. Until next time, you've been listening to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio.